War Eagle, everybody. You got Ike Jones inside of Lobtown. The final from Neville Arena. Auburn goes down 70-59 to the Kentucky Wildcats. An absolutely brutal offensive show from Auburn tonight. Props to Kentucky for coming out and making some really tough baskets and playing better defensively than they typically do. But Auburn, this is the most uncharacteristic home showing I've seen from them all season. And just really not a good job of Auburn at all doing the things that should have gotten them to win. And to add insult or injury to insult, I should say, I was going to say insult to injury, but add injury to insult, Jalen Williams goes down in this game with a knee injury. Hopefully that is not season ending for him, but shades of the Final Four team with Chuma going down. Crazy situation with Jalen right there on an obvious foul, and doesn't get the call and falls and hurts his knee on the way down. But Auburn goes down, and really, listen, Auburn has no one to blame but themselves for how they shot the basketball and the decisions that they made in this game. Before we get too far into this, make sure you guys are sharing the video. I know a lot of people aren't going to want to get around and talk about this, but we got to because we talk about every other game. So we're going to talk about it and where we are right now as far as the picture going into the last stretch for the season. If you don't mind, like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But yeah, let's get in here and talk about the numbers. This was not a great game. Before I get into the numbers, let me just get some initial reactions from you guys. JJ Brand jumps in and says, what were the odds of all of our players to be cold at the same time at home? I don't know what the odds are, but it wasn't very good. Tatiana says, horrible game. Agreed. Really, it just came down to them just not wide open shot after wide open shot. They were missing, from different ranges, medium range, from three, especially. We'll get into the 3-point shooting, which was abysmal. There's no two ways to put that other than abysmal. And Auburn's not a great 3-point shooting team anyway, but you can't shoot this poorly, right? Like, it's one thing to be a bad 3-point shooting thing. It's another to shoot this poorly, especially considering that Kentucky didn't take a bunch of threes in this game, and they are really a big volume shooting team, but not very good at all from three, really from the field at all in this game in total. Let's see. Somebody's saying that I don't have sound. Can you guys hear me? Because I'm talking. I've been talking a lot here, and I want to make sure you can hear me. Audio's on my end, so I'll just keep talking. All right. So, what else are you guys talking about here? Tatiana jumps back in. Nothing went right tonight. It was, just so many crazy situations where they'd have the board and it bounce out of somebody's hands and go directly to a guy for Kentucky who'd go and make a layup or a dunk. That was crazy. Chris S jumps in, 59 points at home. Yeah, 59 points. That's it. It's tough because, again, you had a lot of opportunities to be able to do something, and you just didn't capitalize on them. And then you had some poor shot selection and some silly turnovers early in the game. The 2 behind-the-back passes from Chad Baker-Mazara for no reason whatsoever. When you've got the numbers, that's just being a little too juiced up and trying to make a highlight play when you could have made the simple play. And at crucial times where you were making runs is when those things were happening, when the ball just bounced away from you or you take bad shots. Just was a very – and then Trey Donaldson had a uncharacteristically uneven performance. He didn't make good decisions, had a couple of silly turnovers. It's just there weren't very many guys who had good games for Auburn despite, points that they put up. It's just the game overall just felt very sloppy from a lot of different places. Scott Chapman jumps in and says, man, tough loss. It was a tough one. I think the toughest thing about this loss is you lose the game and you potentially lose Jalen Williams in the process. And now you're going on you got a week to get right, and you go on the road versus Georgia and Tennessee on two tough places to win on the road. It's tough to win on the road in general, but those are two places that are tough to win on the road, particularly at Tennessee. And now you've given yourself really no room for error. You can't lose two and have a shot at the regular season title. At that point in time, you're playing for seeding in the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament if you lose a second one, in my opinion. If you lose two of these if you lose another one now, I don't know that Bama, who is now 2 games ahead of you, is going to falter enough to get the share of the regular season title. Let's see. What else do we have here? Brad Browning, sorry, the picture is bleak. Yep, not looking good. Didn't mean to click on that one, though. Brad Browning says, is this the worst shooting of the year? I don't know. I have to go back and look at the shooting performances on the year. The shooting performance at Bama the first time wasn't very good. The Mississippi State game wasn't very good. The Florida game wasn't very good. So this was definitely the worst shooting performance at home this season, not by a long margin. I mean, listen, just let's get into the numbers since we're talking about it. Auburn shot 31% from the field, which is, I mean, that's what you want to shoot from 3-point range, and you shot that from the field. Now, and from 3, you shot 18%, 4 of 22 from the 3-point line, which is putrid. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting to shoot 4 of 22 from the 3-point line. Free throw line, you didn't help yourself out in any. You shot 30, you only hit 21. It's almost as if they shot themselves out at versus South Carolina, didn't leave anything left in the tank for this game versus Kentucky. I think somebody said the other day, I wish that we could have transferred 20 points from the South Carolina game to this. That'll won you the game right there. But yes, it was awful. Early in the game, too many turnovers. You had 11 turnovers in the game. Kentucky had 12 overall, but it was the live ball turnovers. Points off of turnovers, Kentucky had 23 to Auburn's 10. It was just one of those scenarios where Auburn was turning the ball over too many live ball turnovers. That's one of the things I talked about early in the game. Kentucky wants the live ball turnovers to get over in the transition because they don't do as well in the half court set. They got some good shots in the half court set, but they were making tough baskets tonight in the half court, like floaters in the lane and contested threes. And a lot of this stuff was just like, wow, you have one of your worst shooting performances of the year versus a team who at critical spots, because Kentucky didn't shoot great. They shot 44% on the night. It's not as if they were just lights out. It seemed like they couldn't miss in the crucial times. So it was just really hard to watch your team struggle so much, so mightily, and then Kentucky do so well in the times when they needed to. Auburn did not make a field goal the last 3 minutes and 30 seconds of this basketball game. You had it down to about 5 points right before the Jalen Williams injury, and then it just completely fell apart after he went to the locker room. I remarked that I didn't think that Auburn was going to be able to come back once Jay Will went down, just because I've said this so many times, and his stat line on the night before the injury was 1 of 5, so he hadn't really impacted the game very much. 3 points, no rebounds, and 1 assist in his 24 minutes. So he had not played well to that point, and I've said it a lot. As Jalen Williams goes, so goes the Auburn offense. The nights when he's just not playing well, he's not hitting shots, he's not being aggressive, he's not doing all the things you want him to be able to do, the Auburn offense struggles. And so the Auburn offense struggled tonight without Jalen Williams doing his normal thing. And then to close the game out, it was almost as if that was the kiss of death. So a lot of things went wrong for Auburn here. Super chat from Otis Smith, who says, UK fans, I mean Kentucky fans, I get Kentucky mixed up with the nation we destroyed from our independence. All Kentucky fans 100% watch their wives with other men. That's too much stuff. All right. It was not a good night, and I'm sure Kentucky fans are taking a victory lap right now on social media. Auburn fans got to deal with it, man. Listen, y'all weren't the ones that played poorly out there. Just deal with the fact that your team played poorly tonight and they shot poorly, and you got to own this loss. Auburn should own this loss in their lack of early game composure and their late game inability to get quality looks. There was a sequence where we shot 3 3-pointers. One of them, Denver Jones dribbled into one early in the shot clock from the top. Didn't understand that one. KD had one from the wing that was just kind of like, why are we shooting that one? And then Chad got fouled on one where he does a step back one into the corner, which I know Chad can make that shot. All of those shots are makeable shots. But at that point in the game, that's not the shot that you need, especially considering you hadn't been making a lot of shots. So if you're not making the wide open ones, why do you want to take a tough contested one when you need buckets? I didn't understand any of those shots in those situations. Actually, I think it might have been Trey Donaldson that missed that other one from the side, not KD. At any rate, yeah, Trey had a crazy one where he jacked it up from like 3 feet behind the 3-point line for no reason. Janai had a bad three that he took in the first half. I didn't understand some of the situations in which Auburn was taking threes when they weren't good shots. You weren't making them, but then you took them anyway in bad situations. That was completely frustrating to watch them just kind of flail away. And this is what the Auburn teams, and this is the thing that, when we talked preseason about this team, that you didn't think you would see from this team, because you had such better shooting on this team, that you wouldn't see nights where you would just go 0 from 3, right? And you didn't go 0 right? But you only hit 4. Right, when you look at guys, Jalen Williams 0 for 2, Trey Donaldson 0 for 1, Janai Broome 0 for 3, Chris Moore 0 for 1. Matter of fact, it's easier to say people who made threes tonight. Denver Jones was 3 of 7, and Chad Baker-Mazara was 1 of 1, and it would have been, 1 of 2 had he not gotten fouled on that other one, because he missed that one. But everybody else, Chaney Johnson missed 2 wide open threes in this game. Aiden Holloway, every 3 that he took, except for the one that he got fouled on, wide open threes, like shots that you expect he and Chaney, honestly, to make when they're wide open. You expect Chaney to hit one of those. He doesn't. Aiden doesn't make any of them that he takes. Trey, the one that he took, I didn't think was a very good one, but he missed that. And then Jay Will, the 2 looks that he had were pretty good looks. So KD, the 2 threes that he took, neither of them were very good threes, right? Like both of them were one of them, actually, I take that back. Chaney Johnson, though his second one was wide open, probably wasn't a good look. It was one where he should have gotten the ball into Janai on that one. And it wasn't like the time that you took that one, it's like, yeah, if you make that, you're good, and you're, I think it was a 7-point game at that point in time. If you make it, you get it to 4. But if you dump that down to Janai, then he probably gets 2, maybe even 3 with a foul, and you get yourself to 5 or 4 anyway, and you keep the momentum going. It was just like a really ill-timed shot. So I don't know. It was just crazy. Let's see here. AU in the USMC says, I really hope Aiden can figure something out. I don't want him to be a bust, but yet it's looking that way. Still too early, in my opinion, to call anybody a bust during their freshman season. But he is a guy who is not performing up to what the expectations were for him. And I think that minutes that he's getting now are a result of he's just not able to figure that out just yet. I do like the fact that he went to the lane a little bit more. On the night, Aiden Holloway was 1 of 5 total from the field, 0 of 3 from the 3-point line with 4 points. He got 2 of those points from the free throw line on a 3-point attempt that he had. He got hit. Made 2 of 3. But his inability, I think, to knock down open threes, it's frustrating him at this point in time. And listen, he shoots the ball way too well for me to think that the light isn't going to come on at some point in time. I just don't know that it will come on this season. I'm hoping in the off season, he figures it out. And in the meantime, during this season, he continues to be aggressive and get downhill to try to make some stuff. Let's see what else we got here. Tatiana asks a good question. Ike, where was our defense? Listen, Kentucky averages on the road 85 points per game. They average almost 90 points per game. Let me make sure I have that stat correct for you guys. I don't want to lie to you about that because I did quote it in the pregame. They are averaging on the road this year 78 points per game. Auburn held them to 70 points per game. So almost 79 points per game. You hold them 9 points under their road average. They're almost a 90-point per game team as a whole on the season. You hold them 20 points under their season average. That's actually good defense. Like I want guys like conceptualize the fact that they only scored 70 and they're a team that's used to scoring between 80 and 90, right? So that's what you want your defense to do. Your offense just didn't show up. You can't score 59 points in a game where you hold the other team to 70 on your home court and think you're going to get away with a victory. Like Auburn's got to do better offensively in this game. That was the big issue. Again, the 11 turnovers with 23 points off of those turnovers is really where this game goes away from you. Second chance points, Kentucky had 20 of them to Auburn's 10, even though Auburn had more offensive boards, right? So from a rebounding standpoint, Kentucky won the glass, and this is something I talked about in the pregame. Auburn, you're going to need to be able to out-rebound Kentucky in this game. You did okay. You got out-rebounded by 3 against a team that's taller than you, but the physicality to the boards was definitely in Kentucky's favor, particularly on Auburn not being able to get to all of these bad misses that they had, right? Like you needed to be in the you had 14 offensive rebounds. You needed to be in the 20s, honestly, in offensive rebounds, and then be in the probably around the 20s in your second chance points with how poorly you shot the ball from the outside in order to be able to win this basketball game. Chris S. says, watch Auburn beat Tennessee on the road by 15 plus. It seems like that type of season. That's what you need. You need a bounce back big win on the road versus a quality opponent in order to get your mojo back, right? Like you blow the doors off of South Carolina at home and then you come back and lay an absolute stinker right after that at home. And it just kind of felt like, again, Auburn shot the ball so well against South Carolina. You did wonder whether or not you just kind of, excuse the phrase, blew your entire load in the first game of this home and home stand that you had versus South Carolina and Kentucky. So hopefully they'll, after this week off, they'll get back into the gym and figure out how to get themselves better shots. Not necessarily even about, for me, it's not even about making shots. It's about the selection of shots when you're not shooting well. If you're not shooting well and then you select poor shots on top of that, you're just compounding the issue. Like you can't make one mistake and then turn it into a 2-3 mistake situation. And that's what Auburn did a little bit too much. Let's see here. Damian Smith jumps in and says college game day on campus plus Jay Will getting hurt plus 59 points at home equals the perfect storm for Pearl to have an ultimate coaching moment. Listen, this team is still as deep as it always has been, right? But you're going to have to play heavier minutes for some guys that aren't used to playing those kind of minutes, which means Chaney Johnson's going to have to play a little bit more, and he's going to have to stay out of foul trouble. You're going to have to play Chris Moore a little bit more, and he's going to have to figure out how to be more aware on the offensive end. For some reason, Chris Moore has gotten panicky on offense, and he's not being a basketball player with the ball in his hands. The situation where we got the steal, and then he's going up the court, he gets the ball stolen right back from him. It's because he wasn't being aware in the open court. He's going half speed as if, other people aren't allowed to move around him, and he gets the ball stolen back from him. There was another situation where he had the ball right underneath the rim, and he immediately starts getting fidgety and looking for somebody to throw the ball back out to, as opposed to going up strong underneath the rim, something that last year's Chris Moore would have done. And I just don't understand what's happened to his offensive confidence. He seems like he is in a bad place when it comes to his confidence and his ability to be an offensive contributor. Still love his energy and effort. Still love what he does as far as his defense and his rebounding. On the night, Chris Moore had just 2 boards, right? But, he played hard. He only, made the 1 free throw. But he just didn't, he didn't contribute enough in the ways that like the intangibles that you hope Chris Moore has. He didn't have enough of that for you tonight as well. Let's see. Richard Wentland says, wish we had Broom and Cardwell on the floor to end the game, honestly. At the end of the game, I don't know that you needed both of them on the floor to be able, because the issue for Auburn versus Kentucky was defending the guard action, right? It wasn't that Kentucky was getting downhill so much and getting easy layups. It was they weren't defending the guards out high well enough to take them out of the stuff that they wanted to do. And then just some miscommunication on that last one. But yeah, I don't the issue for Auburn at the end of the game wasn't their inability to control the paint. It was their inability to make shots, and it was their inability to really impact what, I mean, Antonio Reeves went crazy for a stretch there to really push it back out to 12 after Auburn had gotten it to like 5 or 7. So it was that. And then Reed Shepherd just being kind of the consummate point guard, controlling the pace of everything, wasn't really getting bothered too much by whatever the ball pressure was. And honestly, it's disappointing for me when I watched the ball pressure ratchet up for Auburn late game, as if they couldn't have been that determined in the ball pressure the entire game. It just seemed as if Auburn was coming into this as if we're in Neville, we're going to win, as opposed to you have to go take this basketball game away from Kentucky tonight. And that's something that I talked about in the pregame. Kentucky wasn't going to come in here and lay down just because Neville has this mystique. There are a bunch of talented young men that can play basketball. You're going to have to come take the game away from them. And Kentucky was the aggressor in terms of that. That's why it's funny how the loose balls fall your direction when you're being the more aggressive team. And that's just the way that it bounced right tonight for Auburn. Let's see here. Riley Mobley says, well, you have 0 guards. No one will win without guards. You didn't have good guard play tonight. I don't know that it's an accurate statement to say Auburn has 0 guards. Didn't have good guard play tonight, though. I mean, when you look at the guards tonight for Auburn, you have to look at Trey Donaldson with 1 point, had 4 fouls, 2 turnovers, no assists. That is not a Trey Donaldson night. 1 of 2 from the free throw line. You look at Denver Jones, who had 12 points, but was 3 of 11 from the field and 3 of 7 from 3. So all of his field goals came from 3. Made 3 of 4 from the free throw line, had 4 boards, 2 assists, but also 2 turnovers, right? So it kind of washes out what he did from the assist standpoint as a guy who's not a natural point guard, but played a lot of point guard tonight, or a good amount of point guard. KD Johnson, only 6 points tonight on 3 of 10 shooting. He had 2 boards, but he also had 1 assist and 1 turnover. And then you look at Aiden Holloway, we already talked about, only 4 points tonight. So from your 4 guards that you have, it was 13, 19, 20 points. 20 points tonight from the guard spot, but they were, he was 0 of 3. He was 3 of 11, so that makes 3 of 14, 6 of 24, 7 of 29 from your guards tonight. 7 of 29 from the field, and that it equates to 3 of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 3 of 13 from the three-point line, and those 3 all came from Denver Jones. That ain't going to get it, people. And then you talk about your assist to turnover ratio from your guards. No assist for Trey Donaldson. 2 assists for Denver. 1 assist for KD. No assist for Aiden. So you have, what was that, 4? 3 assists to 2, 3, 4, 5 turnovers. Again, not good guard play tonight, right? So, and your guards are typically much stronger than that as a whole, as a unit, and they just weren't very good tonight. Let's see here. Chris S. jumps back in and says, I like when we only shoot around 20 total threes. That's not our strength. Shot 22 tonight, right? So not an inordinate amount of threes being shot. It was the amount that you made of those, right? So, I mean, 2 less takes from 3 and a couple of more drives to the basket. You make this a closer game, but you need to, and I've quoted this statistic before, I think Auburn needs to hit around 7 threes per night. Now, they don't need to be taking over 25 to make those 7, but I think you need to hit around 7 3-pointers in the night in order for it to be a good night for you. You have a night just the other night where Jay Will and Janai combined for 9 themselves, right? That's just an unheard of amount. Again, you wish you could take a couple of those and put them over here in Auburn's category tonight against Kentucky. Let's see. Yeah, Chris agreed. 22 attempts is good, but 4 makes is a crime. That's exactly what I'm saying there. Agreed, 100%. Let's see. Lawrence jumps in and says, "It looks like we have players on the cusp of breaking out. Denver feels like he's a couple of plays from going for 20 points. He had 12 tonight. He definitely could have gotten 20 points with the number of shots he took. He had 11 shots on the night. Um, some tough there was one sequence where, and I think I retweeted Dustin from Up Tempo who said this. There was one sequence where he had a path to drive the ball all the way to the lane, and for some reason took a step back shot from from the side. And I was just like, bro, you had the path all the way to the basket. You're not a short guy, so it's not as if even when you go in there amongst the trees, man, just go in there and take it. And there were multiple guys who had 4 fouls on them. Antonio Reeves, you should have fouled him out of the game, right? So if he gets the ball, go drive at him and make him make a decision on whether or not he wants to stay in this game or if he's going to take a risk. Same thing for Dillingham, who didn't score a ton of points but had 11 for them tonight. Make him make a decision. Are you going to go for the steal here, or are you going to give me the layup or at least the uncontested blow by here so that you're a shot blocker now down in there who on tonight, he had 3 fouls himself, make him decide, okay, is he going to try to block everything or is he going to send me to the free throw line? I just think that Auburn settled too much in tough scenarios for bad shots when you weren't making those. Let's see here. What else you guys talking about? Steve Bradley says Auburn's poor play made them look good, I guess. Plus, couldn't beg a basket. I saw the crap coming after the blowout Wednesday. I mean, I think a lot of people anticipated that Auburn shot so well that you weren't going to get that kind of shooting performance. Didn't expect it to be this bad, though, right? Like, I think, again, this was an abstraction. Like, this was almost like the Florida game where it's like, what do you take from this? It's not like the Florida game. I take that back. You absolutely have some takeaways from this, which is shot selection and valuing the basketball better early. Those things are really what derailed this. You just didn't value the basketball enough early, and you selected very poor shots when you needed to be able to just walk this lead down late. This was kind of the antithesis of what you saw in the second half versus Ole Miss. Wasn't good shot selection. You didn't really work through the post like you could have. Janai Broome, again, Janai shoots 13 shots, and he missed some point-blank shots too. He shoots 13 shots in this game. Probably should have had the ball a lot more in his hands, considering the lack of physicality that Kentucky has interior. He should have gotten more touches and kind of run through him a little bit, but yeah, I didn't like strategically what the guards did in this game. There were opportunities to get the ball to Janai early. I've talked about early offense being a real big key for Auburn. Get the ball to Janai before the other defense has an opportunity to get set. And while they're in scramble mode, he can become an early scorer or a facilitator to guys moving off the ball. Auburn didn't do that well enough tonight. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the guards just look bothered the entire time. The first 2 possessions out of the half, Trey Donaldson dribbles the ball around for like 10 to 15 seconds, then takes a medium range shot that he misses. Nobody else touched the ball on that possession. Then you come back down and you get another possession where it looks disjointed and he gets the turnover and then he just goes and intentionally fouls a guy. He just was not composed tonight. And, we talked about this before because Aiden hasn't really taken that step that you would hope the freshman 5-star would. You can't afford a bad night from Trey Donaldson. And Trey Donaldson, by any metric, had a bad night tonight. He had a bad night versus Florida. Auburn looks bad offensively. He has a bad night versus Kentucky. Auburn looks bad offensively. So the nights where Trey Donaldson just doesn't have it, Auburn's got to find a way to be able to, and hopefully Denver Jones can be that second guard off the bench that allows them to get into their stuff. But again, Denver's not the facilitating type, so he's really more so looking to score. So getting into your offense isn't going to be the same kind of prospect as it would be with a guy who's played point guard a lot more, and Aiden being able to step in and do that. Let's see what else we got out here. Appreciate you guys jumping in. I know it's a frustrating time. Otis Smith says, my man, I just gave you $10 and you put me on timeout. I did not put you on timeout, actually. So I don't know what you're talking about there. I haven't put anybody on timeout tonight. So that is, I don't know why it shows that we would have been on timeout, but um, Oda says, "Still love y'all. I'll go sit in the corner now." So you're saying because I didn't read that? Yeah, it's because it was a little much. It was a little much. But I'm not putting you on timeout. You're welcome to continue to contribute to the conversation. Glenn Bloodworth with the super chat said, "Time to just admit that we're boom or bust team. Still better than boom and Barbie team. War Eagle." Yeah, I mean, I think that is accurate. That it's either going to be blowouts or it's going to be losses for them so far this season. And it's really more so again on the offensive end. Again, the defensive end, absent of the Florida game, which again I know I keep trying to throw that game out of the record, but it exists. But absent of the Florida game, you have good defensive effort for the vast majority of these games. It's the fact that you're not getting good quality shots on offense that are hurting you in these games, because teams aren't really just blowing you out. This was the second double-digit loss for Auburn on the season, and this one was a game where it shouldn't have been double digits, right? Like you were in this game for the vast majority of it, but at spots, you just didn't do well offensively. Another super chat from Ben Bloodworth who says, "Incidental fouls are BS. Just had to get that off of my chest." Yeah, I mean, listen, man, there were a couple of times where guys got hit and nothing got called. And listen, I mean, there were some calls I didn't like that went, that went Auburn's way, where Kentucky probably should have gotten a foul call or didn't get a foul call. But there were some pretty egregious fouls that weren't called. Jalen Williams foul, for instance, the KD drive in the full court, for instance, or calls that was just like, yo, that's not even remotely a foul. The Dylan Cardwell block, not even remotely a foul. Like it's just like, it was just one of those situations where it's like, what are you looking at? The situation where I think it was either Dillingham or Reeves was on the sideline and tried to go for the timeout, and he dragged his pivot foot. And, it was almost like the Chris Webber timeout situation, the way he was doing all this extra stuff. So not great officiating tonight, but I don't think officiating is the reason Auburn lost this basketball game. Didn't help, but it definitely was not the reason, and again, I'm not saying that you're saying that, Ben, but definitely was not a great officiating game. Ant Robinson says, "Why are we going crazy as fans? The goal is the NCAA title. UK is a good team who can shoot better on the road. Plus, our main player got hurt." You're going crazy as fans because this is not a game you should have lost. Now, I think that some people are, saying the season's over with. You have no prayer. Listen, it's by all means, I understand if you're feeling that way because you feel like Jalen Williams is such a crucial part of you being able to get to a title. And he is, right? And so if you're saying, this season is it's going to be tough now without Jalen Williams, because again, I've said it many times, as Jalen Williams goes, so goes this team offensively. Without him, now you have to find out, do you have another person who can be your engine? You absolutely can play through Janai Broome, but he's not Jalen Williams in his ability to attack in multiple ways. And, he's not as athletic. And the way that he can switch and defend is very different than what Janai does. Janai is more of a defensive anchor. Jay Will is a guy who you need to be able to be a guy crashing boards and be able to step out and shoot threes a little bit more consistently. You need Jay Will in this offense to be at your best self. Does that mean that Auburn can't win games without him? Absolutely not. But it's going to be more difficult without him. Absolutely. Chris S. jumps back in and says, "Losing to UK in basketball is a bad thing." We up. Yeah, man, listen, Kentucky's a good basketball team, always has been. And so you just don't expect, this is one of those where you expect Auburn to come out with the win, right? Like, losing on the road to Bama, you expected Auburn to go into Bama and win that game. You're a better basketball team than Alabama. Losing on the road to Mississippi State, you expect Auburn to go on the road and win that game. You're a better basketball team than Mississippi State. Losing this one at home to Kentucky, I don't know that Auburn's necessarily a better basketball team, but they're definitely better than what they showed tonight. I think Kentucky's got a ton of talent, right? And so it's difficult for me to say that you're a better basketball team than a team that is that talented, but you absolutely played like crap on the offensive end. So this is the result of doing what you did offensively tonight. Let's see here. Chris S. jumps back in. Scoring 59 at home versus a defensively inept team is pretty bad. And again, Kentucky, like I tweeted this. It was frustrating for me listening to the commentators try to make this about Kentucky's defense. And Kentucky made some good defensive plays, but this was 100% about Auburn's inability to make shots. They had or taking bad shots. Kentucky wasn't forcing them into bad shots like late in the shot clock. Oh, you just got to get a shot up. Oh, that's a tough one. This was early in the shot clock, poor shot selection, or wide open looks. This was not about Kentucky's defense. Kentucky still is a bad defensive team. Auburn was just an awful offensive team tonight. And so I hate that because the number on the board is 59, it's going to look like Kentucky locked Auburn down. That's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. Auburn just missed a bunch of shots, right? Like typically I do an offensive highlights thing, like literally, and it's every shot that Auburn makes. I'm going to have 17 highlights from this game. That's how bad offensively Auburn was tonight. I'm going to have 17 highlights to have to put up for this game because Auburn only made 17 shots from the field tonight. Took 55. 31% is abysmal. And that's not because Kentucky was locking them down, right? When we look at blocked shots, Kentucky had 3, Auburn had 5. And Kentucky's one of the best shot blocking teams in the country. It was not about Kentucky's defense tonight. Now, Kentucky played good defense in spots as evidenced by the points off of turnovers that they had, which is 23, right? Like you did what you were supposed to do defensively, but Auburn only scoring 59 was not about how good Kentucky was defensively. It just wasn't. Let's see here. What else do we have? A lot of great comments from you guys tonight. I'll have to scroll forever to get to the end of this thing here. I'm trying to get to the end so I can get to some of the more recent comments because you guys have probably said a lot since I started talking. JJ Brand jumps in and says, what happened tonight happens every year to most teams. We were cold. That's basketball. And I agree with this 100%. It stings because this is a game you needed to get so that you don't have to go undefeated for the rest of the season just to potentially get a share. Like you need other teams to slip up now. Like you've taken it out of your own control, your own destiny to be able to get the regular season title, which is one of the goals of this team. And again, what stings the most out of all of this is not the loss. It's the loss of Jalen Williams. And hopefully it's not something that's season ending. It's not something that, I mean, heaven forbid it becomes, and you don't really have a lot of career ending injuries these days, but career altering where he's just not as bouncy as he once was. He doesn't have the same abilities that he did when he, first before the injury. Right. So we'll see what happens with Jay Will, but definitely hoping for the best for him. And that's, outside of being an Auburn fan, if this had been Antonio Reeves that had hurt his knee, I'd have been saying the same thing. Like, listen, you don't want to see a guy get hurt that had so much promise and potential. So hopefully everything is all right with him. Debbie Norton says, I never listen to commentators. I listen to Andy and Coach. I just don't be wanting to go through the whole situation of trying to sync those things up to try to do that. And it is frustrating to listen to commentators say stuff because what happens is they start driving narratives, right? And I get it. Like, you have to be able to have some sort of story that comes out of this. It's just that the story that they manufactured out of this, I don't think is true to what actually happened in this game, right? Auburn scored 29 points in the first half and 30 points in the second half. Let's go half by half and just kind of take a look at this. In the half by half comparison, we have from the field, Auburn shot 34% in the first half of this game. Excuse me, that is not correct. Auburn shot 28% in the first half of this game and then only shot 34% in the second half of this game. From three, amazingly, Auburn shot worse in the second half of this game. 3 of 12 in the first half. So all of the three-pointers, that doesn't seem right because who shot the other 3 for Auburn? Let me take a look at that. 3-point field goals. Somebody else had to have hit one. I thought Let me go look at the game box again. Okay, we did hit four. I was about to say because I know Denver hit three. So who hit the other one? It was Chad hit the other one. I forgot that early in the first half. Okay, all right. Because I know that Denver hit one in the second half there towards the end. Anyway, in the first half, you shot 3 of 12 for 25%. Second half, 1 of 10. Like you actually shot worse somehow from three in the second half of this game. Free throw percentage was absolutely disgusting tonight. 70% on the game. You shot 66% in the first half of that game on 8 of 12. And listen, nobody's there to defend the three-pointer. So, like, what are you attributing that to? Like, Kentucky had great defense. They forced Auburn to miss free throws. No, they didn't. Right? It's like, again, it just was crazy when you start hearing them say this. Let's see. What else do we have here? Vonnegut Brooks asks, what do you think we do in the last 5 games? Listen, at this point in time, I don't really know what you can think about the last 5 games, right? You've got 2 of them, there 3 of these games are on the road. So let's just go ahead and peek ahead at the final games down the stretch here for Auburn. Auburn has a week off here. So they are going to play next on the road versus Georgia. And for some reason, my thing isn't updating over here. Let's go to this one. Maybe this site will do it. I know it's Georgia, Tennessee. Then you come back home, I think, against Mississippi State. So yeah, on the road versus Georgia, on the road versus Tennessee, back home versus Mississippi State, on the road at Missouri, and then back home versus Georgia. So 3 of those last 5 are on the road where you haven't proven that you can play particularly well. And specifically that Tennessee game, you just wonder what it's going to be like. If you shoot this poorly in the Georgia game, you're going to go to Georgia and lose as well, right? Like that. Let's just call a spade a spade. You can't shoot this poorly on the road against a team like Georgia that shoots really well at home and hope to get out of there with a dub. So that's one thing. It's going to be tough to be able to play better and shoot well against a good defensive team in Tennessee. So what you have to do is make that into a mud fight and try to, hope Tennessee's not shooting well and frustrate the crap out of Dalton Connect. You come back home versus Mississippi State, a team that has not shot the ball well in anybody's building. But again, what Auburn offense is going to show up in that game? I don't know the answer to that. Missouri's not a very good team. And so if you lose that game, then you just, flush your season there. But again, and also, what's the status of Jay Will, right? Like there's so much unanswered here. And then back home versus Georgia. So I don't really know what Auburn's going to do because I need to see what version of Auburn comes back out after this week and whether or not Jalen Williams is going to be a part of this basketball team going forward. So it's a lot of unanswered questions left for him. I think that if I know Jalen Williams is going to be there and he's going to be 70% of himself, even if he's not 100%, then I still think that Auburn can go 4-1 in those last 5. No Jalen Williams, then you're looking at who knows. Who knows? So it's difficult to say. What else do we have here? Appreciate you guys sticking in here with me. I know there's a lot of people talking about this game in a lot of different spaces tonight. A lot of frustration going on around the Auburn sphere, especially considering people stayed out front and camped out for 2-3 days to watch this game and see a very disappointing outcome. But listen, it's going to be all right. There is plenty more basketball left to play in this season. Ben jumps back in. The Auburn mobile app is pretty awful. I don't even know what that's in reference to, but okay. Let's see here. Ant jumps back in, right, Ben? We almost lost 10 games that season. I missed something from Ben here, but caught fire at the right time. Lost to UK, same way, caught fire in the tournament again. Why are we bashing and mad? Let me see what Ben said to prompt that. Here we go. What I think is making some fans more frustrated is that every loss we take is bolstering Bama. I mean, that's definitely a part of it. If Bama was having a horrendous season, and Bama fans couldn't come and talk junk to you, then you'd feel a lot better, especially considering Bama won one of the two. If you had beaten Bama both times and Bama fans were trying to talk junk, you probably would just be like, okay, whatever, bro. Like we swept you this season. Don't come talk to me. But yes, I think that's part of the frustration of a lot of fans is, number one, Kentucky fans are going to be absolutely out here and giving you the business, which they have earned the right to do because their team won. But then, other fans in the conference, like South Carolina fans, like Alabama fans, who are around the top of the conference, are going to also pile on. Because listen, you were riding high before this game thinking, hey, man, we're invincible at home. This Auburn team can't lose at home. And then you lose at home, right? You look invincible the game before, and then you come back and you lose at home, which means Auburn's due to go and spank somebody on the road, man. Like, let's change this road narrative here so that you become a team that is able to fight back in a very real way. Let's see. What else do we have here? A lot of great comments from a lot of great Auburn fans here. I appreciate you guys. I'm seeing you guys to react. Okay, let's see. Ant says this is the second or third season in a row we are a bad 3-point shooting team. But guess what? I remember when we barely could win 10 games. Yeah, absolutely. Again, I don't know that we're a bad 3-point shooting team on the season. You're an average 3-point shooting team. You have some bad games and you have some really good games. So you're a very hot and cold 3-point shooting team. Again, and I'll say this again. The problem for me is not necessarily that they're not making threes. And that really wasn't my problem last year. I mean, the wide open ones are frustrating for you to watch and miss. It's the selection of when you're shooting them. It's like you realize you're not shooting it well, but you keep shooting them, and then you keep shooting them in bad scenarios early in the shot clock, contested type stuff. And it's like, I get it. I know that you are capable of making those shots. Tonight, you're not making them. How about we stop shooting them and go get a better shot? Because there are better shots available to you. Make the extra pass and see if you can go get a better shot, right? Like, instead of shooting the contested three, how about you pass it to somebody, which I think KD did a great job of that at one point in time early in the first half, or in the first half, I won't say early in the first half, but early in the game in the first half, where he had an open three, but then he made the extra pass to Denver, who knocked down the open three. Just being a little bit more cognizant of scenario and how you're taking some of these shots, I think will help this team so much more. Or again, getting to even though you're not making free throws really well, get them in foul trouble. You get some of their better players in foul trouble. Now they're having to get crucial minutes from guys who aren't used to playing heavy minutes. That's a strategy for you winning games like this. But just continuing to fog it up from three when you're not making them, that is where I'm just like, yo, why are we doing this? And then I think this is the second time in a row that, Auburn has been down in a game by double digits, and I feel like the urgency just wasn't there. We had a possession where the game was right around 11, and we took like 12, 13, 15 seconds, something like that, to go get a shot off, and it's like, bro, you're down by multiple possessions right now. Running the offense, this ain't the time for that. Now's the time for you to be forcing those crazy looks. Right? You need to go get into your stuff, get downhill, and just so the situational awareness and it is, I think, the biggest thing that's lacking for this team. But again, that goes back to not having, and I said this before, not having, I think, experienced guards who are able to really control the pace. I think Trey Donaldson is a really, really good basketball player. Had a bad night. He was not controlling this game the way that you want your point guard to. Aiden hasn't learned how to control a collegiate basketball game in that way. And that's going to be the most difficult thing for this Auburn team down the stretch, is figuring out how to get into the right scenarios, because you have guards that are making good decisions with the basketball, particularly when you're making runs. Can you continue to get good shots and get yourself out of bad situations because you have guards that are making the right play? Let's see. A lot of great comments again. I appreciate you guys here. Steve Bradley says, "We'll blow UJ. Will I think you meant will, no apostrophe there. So we'll blow UGA off the court. Always win after a loss. Watch out in Tennessee. Please stop the trend." Yeah, I mean, listen, Tennessee was going to be a tough game regardless of what happened tonight, regardless of what happens at Georgia. That's going to be a tough basketball game on the road against a really good defensive team when you have not shot, particularly for a team that has not shot the ball well on the road, right? Like if Auburn was able to shoot the ball well on the road, then you'd have more confidence that you could go out there and do it. But not shooting the ball well against a team that plays good defense, this is the same scenario that happened at Mississippi State, right? Like a good defensive team, when you don't shoot the ball well on the road already, puts you in a tough position where now you have to play lights out defensively. Like you've got to force a bunch of turnovers and you got to get in the open floor, and you have to have solid guard play that allows you to be able to get good possessions. And Auburn has not had that for 40 minutes on the road very much. You've had it in spots on the road. I think second half Ole Miss, you had really good guard play. You had some timely stuff that was happening with KD and Trey in those games. Second half versus Bama, you saw Trey pop up in that game and in some crucial points. Right. So you've had moments on the road where you've had good guard play, right? On the games that you won that people seem to overlook somehow, like we don't win any games on the road where Arkansas, I get Arkansas and Vanderbilt aren't the top teams in this conference, but they still count as wins, right? So if your losses count, if I can't just throw out the Florida loss because, oh man, it wasn't our night, then you can't just say that Auburn can't win on the road as if they didn't win those games that they won on the road, right? So it is one of those things where Auburn has to figure out this offensive synergy and get into a situation where you understand that Janai Broom's your best offensive weapon, and you need to play basketball through him more intentionally. More intentionally play through Janai Broom. And again, that has a lot to do with your guards just understanding, hey, early in the shot clock, Janai has good position. Let me just go ahead and get this post entry pass to him, and then we'll figure out how to play off of Janai. Or he doesn't have the shot because they play good defense. All right, great. It was early in the shot clock. Let's get it back out. Let's run something with the remaining, if it's 23 seconds on the shot clock, you get it to him, and for 3 seconds, he's dribbling around. He gets into a double team. No great pass. Great. Let's pass the ball back out. You still have 18 to 20 seconds to run stuff, right? So just understanding that you have the ability to do that a little bit more will help this team a lot, particularly on these road trips that they have, 3 of the last 5 on the road. All right, man. Ant Robinson says, the guards are not the problem. We are an inside-out team. To be honest, Kentucky shut that down. They always have great big men and guards who are solid. They just denied us in the inside-out game. I disagree with this, Ant. The guards are the problem. And this is a great opportunity for me to do a watch the film on this game to show you why I disagree with that completely. Kentucky did not do a great job of denying the ball on the inside. Auburn did a poor job of getting the ball to the inside. And I can show that to you on film. Multiple instances where Auburn could have gone to the post early in possessions and chose not to. Auburn made poor post entry passes. Yeah, I disagree with that assessment that Kentucky, again, this was not about Kentucky's defense. It wasn't. It was not. And I don't know how many ways I can say that. I disagree with that, and I think the film will back that up. So you guys make sure you get back with me, Green Name Gang. We will go and we'll look at this game, and I will show you the opportunities that Auburn had in the post to be able to play through Janai Broom more effectively. They just didn't take advantage of them. But that's enough of me talking, man. There's probably a whole bunch more conversations that will be happening around this over the next couple of days. I'm looking forward to hearing you guys' thoughts on it. Before you get out of here, make sure you share the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to get out of here, and I will be back with you guys on Monday. I won't be here tomorrow because I'll be at the women's basketball game. But until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.